education, if it's a problem of our students and not being as bright, our students not being as bright as they were, in time past. Remember our parents or our forefathers, just going to secondary school, coming out, graduating, companies would want to take them on and, train them because the quality of education then was believed to be high. What has changed? So the Joint Admissions Matriculation Board, JAMB, released the results of candidates who participated in the 2024 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination with 64,624 results under investigation. Now, the board registrar, Professor Ishak Oloyede, disclosed this at a press briefing in Buhari, Abuja on Monday. Oloyede said that 1,986,668 candidates registered for the examinations held in 118 towns in 774 computer-based test centers. According to the registrar, out of the registered candidates, 1,904,109 sat for the examination, while 80,810 were absent. He explained that 64,624 results were under investigation for various reasons such as verification, procedural investigations, and prima facie established exam misconduct. He said other results under investigation were center-based investigations involving 57,056 candidates in 18 centers across the country. The 18 centers listed for the investigation were 12 in Edo, 3 in Akwa Ibom, 2 in Delta, and 1 in Kwara State. The board witnessed the near zero infraction situation in the 2024 UTME except for a few cases which represent just a tiny fraction of what was reported last year. This is encouraging and the board is poised to consolidate on the success recorded, he said. Now, while giving analysis of the results, Oloyede said 8,401 candidates representing 0.5% scored 300 and above. Just 0.5% of the... Anyways, we get to that. 77,070 candidates representing 4.2% scored 250 and above. He further said that 439,974 candidates representing 24% scored 200 and above. And this is where the shocking story is. 1,402,490 candidates representing 76% scored below 200. So on that note, I would like to welcome my guest on the show. He is an associate professor, University of Port Harcourt, the Department of Educational Foundation, and he goes by the name Benjamin Nyewusira. Should I call you associate? How do I call it? Is it you still a prof?
Just call me Ben Nyewusira. I'll be okay with that.
I know we like titles.
I will just be okay with that.
All right then.
Yes.
All right. So welcome. So you had me read some of the data. Just 0.5% were able to score 300 and above. For 250 and above, about how many percent was it again? About 4.2%. Just 4.2% were able to get 250. 76% failed to reach 200, which is supposed to be the average mark. Let's get, as someone who is in the educational industry, what's your take on that? Let's start from there.
Well, good evening, Kalada.
Yeah, it's good to have you.
I'm meeting you for the first time in this studio. Good evening, the listener out there. And permit me to use this opportunity to congratulate the Nigerian workers.
Okay.
Don't forget, those of us who are committed and dedicated to ensuring that Project Nigeria works.
Okay.
Now, away from that, you've revealed that, will I call it interesting statistics or appalling statistics now concerning this year's JAMB result? Well, it is what it is. If you ask me, what could be responsible is just an interplay of factors.
Okay.
All right. What you did not add, or maybe what that breakdown did not capture, is the total number of centers. I think they had about 700 centers.
Okay.
For the exam, from what I read. Now, in measurement, that's what we call reliability.
Okay.
And that is to say that if these students who had this abysmal performance were to be given an opportunity to do this same exam again under another circumstance, will they do better?
Okay.
Will there be consistency in their performance? Will they do better?
Okay.
Now, the truth is that I was listening to a soundbite from this studio yesterday. For one, I didn't invigilate, I didn't participate in any way. And somebody was saying that most of these students are not computer literate.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. The soundbite came from your studio. Yeah, it was in your news bulletin. That some of them were struggling, to master the system. And don't forget that it is a CBT exam. In fact, there was one that I read that before the young man even started, he had clicked submitted. And that is a 0. Before he got started, I got that report, online, that there was this candidate who, in an attempt, he made a mistake, clicked the submission button, and that was it. Nobody's going to reset that exam for him again. But, so, were all the centers, exposed to the same equipment or the same efficiency, of the equipment or the tool for this exam? Because I do know some time ago that having organized CBT exams, that the process could run into hitches. Could run into hitches, unexpected hitches. Okay? And so what happens at that? You will use, that to judge the outcome of the exam. So these 700 centers, were they giving the same enablement? Were they enabled equally? And I doubt. Okay. Some of these centers will have been located, and I give you an example. Last year my daughter wrote JAMB. Okay. And there's what they call mock JAMB. I don't know whether it took place this year. Okay. And I was told that she was going to do her mock exam in a school somewhere in Mboshimini, here in Port Harcourt, Canada. I'm born and bred in Port Harcourt. I'm over 50 now. But do you know what? It took me about 2 hours to locate that place.
That's in Ajib.
That's in Ajib area. Yeah. It took me about 2 hours for an exam that was to start about 7, a.m. It took me about 2 hours. Much as, I'm a Port Harcourt boy. I tried as much as possible asking until I was able
to get the center.
To get the center. And that may be the story of some of these students across the federation. So while most of these centers are located in the urban centers where you can easily access, some are in remote. There are people who wrote the exam somewhere, some in Dele, Ahoda, and all of those. So that's one thing you will want to consider. The reliability of this exam is an issue. So
now, sorry to pause you. Listening to you,
yes,
I'm not beginning to think, and I'm wondering, is examination a true test of knowledge? Some people have had the argument over the years, but yes. I want to get your thoughts on that, because you're now saying, let's look at the conditions, the efficiency of the centers. You're putting all of that into consideration. Yes. Can we then argue that examinations are not true test of knowledge?
As far as the school system is concerned,
okay,
the world over, read my lips. Yeah. the world over.
Okay.
Examination is just tests. It's just the way to find out whether learning has taken place. It could vary. All right? It could vary. Sometimes it could be practical. Sometimes it could be theoretical. But any student, any school system or school process must end up with a way of finding out. That's the test. Must find out whether learning has occurred, whether the student has assimilated, and so that's it. So this issue of whether it's a true test of knowledge, well, is debatable, but all we know is that conventionally, and I want to say globally, is a global practice.
But if we want to put all of these factors, you say in that had some kind of effect that interplayed. Are we then really going to say that these people have really been tested?
Well, like I told you, if the reliability is compromised, we cannot say that they are truly been tested. Right? You are given a system to do your exams, and midway the system trips off. You're on your own. Okay?
Yeah.
So at that point we can say that something went wrong with the process. Good. But there is another thing that is referred to as the validity. That is testing what actually ought to be tested. That is, you have a syllabus, you are supposed to learn part of your syllabus, say, for example, logarithm. I think that's what they call it in mathematics now. I'm a poor mathematician.
Well, I'm worse, but we'll get back to you.
Exactly.
We do have a commercial. After the commercial, we'll get back to that. Please stay tuned.
I'll come again with that.
All right. Good afternoon to you. It's the bottom of the hour, and Hard Facts continues right about now. We're looking at the poor performance, where it is reported 76% of JAMB candidates scored below 200, and 200 is like the middle, the average mark. And my guest is an associate professor, University of Port Harcourt, particularly Education Foundation, Benjamin Nyewusira. Welcome on the show once again.
Thank you, Kalada.
All right, so you mentioned several factors at play as to the reason why there was the poor performance. But some people have argued, if you listened to the news yesterday, you must have heard, that this signifies a drop in the standard of education in Nigeria. Do you agree with that?
Well, the dialectics of standard and quality is always there. I want to tell us that, at the risk of not confusing standard and quality, the standards are guidelines set.
Okay.
All right? Criteria set. The criteria set to make learning or teaching and learning happen. And those are set.
And those have not dropped?
They have not dropped.
So what about the quality?
Well, quality, we have issues with quality. Quality is the outcome of the product. Okay. I was trying to talk about the validity of the examination before we went off. We went to a commercial, that if I didn't participate in this exam, now validity means that exam measured what it ought to measure. I was trying to use mathematics. Unfortunately, I'm not.
I can't help you either.
So okay, but I do know that while we were in school, we studied the quadratic equation, linear equation.
True.
Now, if the syllabus says that you should study, if the JAMB syllabus rather said you should study, you are going to be tested on linear equation, and you go to the exam and you see questions on quadratic equation, something is going to happen, right? You are likely going to fail that exam. All right? Or maybe the literature that was recommended is Arrow of God, and then you went into the exam, you are seeing questions on the concubine, for example. That, again, we will query the validity of that exam. But away from the reliability of the exam and the validity of the exam, there are issues in the Nigerian educational system, no doubt. We can't run away from that.
Okay.
In fact, the educational system is on trial.
Okay.
We can't run away from that. I'm beginning to think. The other day, my very senior colleague was here, Professor K.K. Aaron. Okay. And he was reeling out his experience with our students, the very lack of seriousness. And I'm beginning to fear that this very wrong narrative that education is a scam is beginning to take its tolls in our educational system.
So people are beginning to believe this, the children are beginning to believe.
I'm beginning to fear that it's beginning to take a toll because the level of seriousness has dropped. Canada.
Okay.
And for anyone who is listening to me now, I'm not a Gen Z, and I don't think you are.
No, I'm not.
Good. In those days, preparing entrance exams into the university or your O-level examination was like near do or die.
It's not like it was do or die.
Good. And we had this. I won't call it a drama. We had this prep time where you will have a bucket of water, soak your leg, and then look for an ice block to cool your head. You know, those who are listening to us now who did their West African School examination about the 80s or late 80s when we did, will tell you that was just it. The level of seriousness, and you could see that as at the time the WAEC result will be out. Some parents, I tell you, something happened. I had every other paper that I needed to go to school to go to university, but I had a pass in English language in my very first sitting. Canada, for 2 days, nobody ate in my family. I'm just telling you, including my younger brother was wailing with me. He's a professor now. He was wailing with me. He didn't do that exam. But everybody, it was like the house was shut down. And so when next I registered for that exam, I had no option than to make it. And that was exactly what happened. So, but you can't find that level of seriousness today. You can't.
What could be the reason?
Is
it the family? Is it the secondary school? Is it the society? Is it the technology?
A whole lot. All this put together, like I said, an interplay of factors. I can tell you. Back in the day, you mentioned the family. It was the right place to start. In fact, before you go to school, before you leave for secondary school, your father or your parents were likely going to wake you in the morning to tell you, hey, guy, here you are leaving us today. Know the reason why you are leaving this house.
Yeah, the sermon before the
In fact, they will wake you up about 4 a.m. I don't know whether it happened to you.
It happened to me.
Good. They will wake you about 4 a.m. Call your name. Particularly if you are the stubborn type. Kalada. How many times did I call you? And then your parents will sit you down and tell you, that this is a mission you must accomplish. They will tell you the reason why you don't need to fail yourself, why you don't need to fail your the family, and why you don't need to fail your society. Listen, Kalada, back in the day, my community primary school, I didn't go to community secondary school anyway. Primary school is a stone throw from you here. At the end of the term, as it happens to be that I need to pass through my maternal home before I get home. Listen, my uncles will be on the road
waiting for you,
waiting to collect and see my report card. Can that happen today? That's at the family level. All right? That level of commitment, that level of a family involvement, it's not happening today. That's just the truth. Parents are busy chasing all whatnot out there. So that commitment on their own part. And I keep telling people that, look, throwing money at your child in the school is not education. Isn't.
What is education then?
Education is is to ensure that, look, learning happens. There's a change of behavior. Your child should go to school and living and coming back to the home better than he left home. Did you hear me? The child should leave home to school and come back
better
to the home better than he left home. Education would have happened or taken place. All right. So you said technology, of course. You know that ordinarily technology ought to aid the education, and it's aiding education. Should aid the process and learning system. But in this part of the world, it appears to be distractive. Very much distractive. All right. So like my friend will say that rather than face their books, the children are on Facebook. Okay. And all of that. So that is why today some private universities will tell you that
no
phones.
Okay.
Why? Because they don't want that distraction. They don't want that level of distraction that will keep you away from studies. All right. So of course, don't forget that anywhere in the world, the government powers education.
All right.
Anywhere in the world. I brought a copy of the National Policy on Education here. Anywhere in the world. And so what is the level of government commitment to I'm talking about all levels now, whether it's local government, because local government has, you were trying to talk about the
South?
No, South, no, not about that. The Constitution, the residual component of it, legislative component,
concurrent and
exclusive, and then the residual. That was what.
Okay, I was trying to remember.
Yes, you were trying to remember. Good. So even the local government has a role to play. But we have local government education authorities. Find out what they do. Find out how much they vote for the primary schools in their areas, if they do at all. But we have local government education authority. In fact, as a matter of fact, if you look at the UBE Act, the local government ought to anchor the mass literacy aspect of it. But that's not happening. That's not happening. We only will be pointing fingers to the federal government and then to the state government. I was trying to look at the budget for education, national now. All right. We have 7%. That is what
somewhere
about
around
somewhere around that
region.
And then you have UNESCO recommending 26%, at least minimum benchmark. I also read that from the breakdown of our budget, that what members of the National Assembly budgeted for themselves is higher than what 25 universities in this country.
Yeah, sure.
Is that not madness? So where's the commitment? Is that not madness? And so when you find these lapses, results like that will likely be inevitable. But I just pray that we will have a way of revamping the educational sector. There are so many things to decry about the Nigerian educational system. Kalada, do you see the most worrisome? I will take any government that is able to roll back the statistics of out of school children in Nigeria. Because as we speak now, that is the highest on planet Earth. Okay,
before we get to out of school children and the likes. Now let's come back to this one. And I like some of the factors you reeled out. We started by saying some of the candidates are not computer literate, and it falls back to the government, because the government is supposed to play a role in mass literacy, like you pointed out. But how would this impact society? You know what? Before we get to impact in society, what kind of students are being admitted into the university? You were a lecturer at the University of Port Harcourt. You get to talk with 100 level students. If we have resources, and this is not the first time, universities and other tertiary institutions have had to reduce cut-off marks to 140, 160, 180, so that students can write post-UTME exams and get admission. What kind of student? Because I'm very concerned about how this is impacting the kind of students that we're getting into universities and graduating.
Good. My former vice chancellor, I saw a post he made. He said, these 76% now are the raw materials that university system are going to be working with. And when you have the poor raw material, it's going to affect the factory.
Okay.
That is just it. You see, people talk about Nigerian graduates, not being able to speak English. And we will always... The English you speak in this studio today, I am afraid if you were taught in the university.
No.
Certainly not.
Primary and secondary school.
So if we jump the guns, if what we are supposed to do at the primary school we didn't do, and what we are supposed to do in the secondary level we didn't do, then be rest assured that the tertiary education is going to struggle. That is where we are. That's just the truth. The other day, you were talking about the fears of the Minister of Education and underage students, and I said, look, we shouldn't run into that problem in the very first place if we are doing the right thing. Reason being that, going by the national policy on education, it is only when you are age 6 that you are supposed to enter primary school. Anything before then is early childhood, falls in the bracket of early childhood education. And then you're supposed to finish your secondary school by age 12. Right? Sorry.
Age
primary
12.
school. Primary school.
Okay, primary school by age 12. Yeah.
And then use 6 years to do junior and senior secondary school. That will be 18 years. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
But here we are, because of lack of supervisory, lack of supervision rather, we jump classes. Some schools today don't have primary 6. There is no official policy excluding primary 6 in the Nigerian educational system. But nobody in the inspectorate division is not careful to ensure that, look, what we have in the policy document is followed hook, line, and sinker. That is not happening. So now students will now finish school at the age of 15 or 16, as the case may be, and then, but going by the books, nobody should be in the university ordinarily before 18. Although we'll have cases of what we call fast learners, those who may be opportune to be given double promotion and all of that. But we are talking about the books. What the national policy says. It says you should at least spend, age 6 to 12 in the primary school. And of course, spend 3 years in junior secondary school, spend 3 years.
3 years.
That's all.
Let me pause you now.
Thank you.
You've said, and I like the reference and analogy you use, that the students are the raw materials with which the factory, which is now the university, would use.
Yes.
Can't the university do something about it? Don't you think the university plays a role? Because in my time, the minimum we would have thought to get would have been 200. Let's at least get 200 so we can cross the line. Well, even if you get 140 now, you have faith you can write the post UTME to a tertiary institution. Now the question is, the universities, can they not play a part in ensuring that there is, back then you think of Uniport, you think of UI, you think of Unilag, you'd be like, oh, these are the schools. Almost everybody wanted to go to those schools because they had the highest cut of marks, right? Do you think cut of marks have a role to play?
To an extent, but don't equally forget, you mentioned the post UTME. That's why universities have, also have opportunity to test these children before they come in. So the post UTME is there.
Okay.
And I want to believe that universities that are very thorough in the post UTME assessment will likely get better raw materials. Permit me to use that.
Okay.
Yeah. So except again, if the system is compromised at that level, at least we'll have a dual approach now to the entry system. You have the UTME and you have the post UTME to augment, to see, so that separate the shaft from the wheat. The wheat. So it's a welcome development.
Okay.
It's a welcome development, but some of us have really argued that universities should be given the outright autonomy
to conduct
exams, so that you take responsibility of those who come into the system. But in this case now, don't equally be surprised, sir, that most of the persons who we claim have scored 360 or 350 or do you understand? May find their way into the university system and struggle with the system.
Yeah, true.
Last year, but for the investigation into the Mesoma scandal, have you forgotten that?
No, I've not.
Good. So assuming that went through, the university will struggle with it. But like I said, the post UTME is there to help.
Now let's look at this. Now we've talked about a couple of things, and we have seen that there is the lack of passion when it comes to learning from children of these days.
Yes.
How is this going to impact on the Nigerian society in the nearest future? They said that the bedrock of a society is education. It's knowledge.
Yes.
Knowledge is power. But even with the amount of professors and doctors and people who have gone to school, we still have the plethora of problems that we have bedeviling the country.
Yeah.
Then talk more of when we have a situation where people are not interested in schooling, or they go through the school and they use the back door. What then happens to the society?
The society is likely going to suffer if we don't do anything to revamp the educational system the way it is currently. That's just the truth. That's just the plain truth. So all hopes are not lost as far as I'm concerned. It's a process. It is a process, quite okay, but we should be able to equip the school system with the right tools. Kalada.
Okay.
The reason why you are proficient in this place is that you have the tools to work with.
Okay.
So let the school system provide the teachers. In fact, starting with training the teachers, they should be adequately trained. They should also be given the right to work with. I was reading an interview granted by Sule Lamido some time ago, I think about 10 northern governors or so were invited to American Institute of Peace.
Yeah.
You know, you remember?
Yeah.
So they
That was this week or last.
correct. So the man was telling them that, look, you are going there to look for peace when your children, all right, are sitting under the tree, studying. When you and for those who even have a roof over them, in the name of a school, they sit on the bare floor.
Yeah.
And so he said, do you think you can divorce this from insecurity? And he called them jokers. But unfortunately, that is where we are. So let the government, and I've always believed and know that education is a constitutional issue. I'm not a lawyer, but section 18, right? Talked about government. It is the responsibility of government to provide free education at all levels, although there's a caveat as when practicable.
Okay.
And we'll ask ourselves, when is it practicable? You know, and Kalada, I will want to say that it is even so practicable because we have resources, humongous resources in this country to power educational system. Let's not deceive ourselves.
Okay, if you were to advise all the stakeholders, the parents, the secondary schools, the primary schools, the different levels of government, what would that advice be? As someone who is in the education profession.
There is this saying that education for all is a responsibility of all.
Okay.
Yes. It's a responsibility of all. Parents, the students, the teachers, the government, all hands must be on deck to make sure that, you know, we have that desirable and functional educational system that, you know, we should have. It's happening in other countries. It's happening even in some third world countries. It's happening in some African countries. So why can't we do it?
Do you think we should change the manner of teaching? Maybe make it more appealing to the Gen Zs and the TikTokers? Do you think that will work?
Yeah, if you have this how will I call it now? Some form of simulation, something that can arouse interest in learning. Facilitate the environment in such a way that it will be appealing. All right, they could pick up.
Okay.
But a situation where have you been to some public schools? I mean, where students will sit on the floor.
Yes, I think I have.
And so how would you expect that student to pay attention for a student who is
or
sitting
want to go to school?
Or want to go to school? What is? Let me tell you, sir. We have always been running after the right policies and not implementing. I hope you know about the school feeding program, which other countries have used to reduce the level of illiteracy. But here we are. The school feeding program has run into scam.
That's good. Okay. All right. Let's read some messages as we were not able to take calls. This says, good evening, Mr. Kalada. The poll result recorded by JAMB. Children no longer read their books. They prefer pressing phones to reading. Ernest from Moji says, I have a solution to this thing. Next time JAMB wants to conduct exam, they should conduct it on TikTok so that our Gen Zs can get an A in shaking equal the side and licking their lips, you said. This one says, good evening, Kalada. I'm not surprised with the data. I am a teacher in a secondary school. Parenting and being a parent is not the same thing. Parents are carelessly allowing their wards and children to have more time on their phones and other digital devices. The reading culture is long dead. Teachers have tried their best with the 6 hours 30 minutes. What are the parents doing with their 18 hours 30 minutes? Okoroma Godwin Chokes from Erema Community. I've got so many other messages, but when we do come back, we would ask them the prof some other questions, so please do stay tuned. 2 minutes, and I would have to step on a break so that we can have the news at 6. And there are a lot of messages. This one said, honestly, I booed my son as he scored 189 because I've been wanting him to read and reduce his social media time to no avail. Emioka Monday, JP from Awood. I guess this conversation, is touching a lot of people more than I thought it would. And this one says, I agree with your guest that education is going down, and I think it's because the youths believe that if they go to school and come out, there will be no jobs for them. Some that are in school now are there because they have to believe that one day Nigeria will be great again. Anyways, time is fast spent. Your final words on this very issue. What do you have to say?
Let's prioritize education.
When you say let us, who are you talking to?
Every one of us.
But how do we make the main people, the students, the key stakeholder, which is the student, how do we make him prioritize education?
I think we should begin to give them a new orientation. I told you that, I've been an issue that this very false and misleading narrative that education is a scam appears to be affecting our children adversely.
All right.
So let's do away with that false orientation.
All right, thank you very much, Associate Professor, Education Foundation, Department of Education Foundation, University of Port Harcourt, Benjamin Nyewusira. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Kalada.
And it's good to finally meet you.
Thank you.
It's time for the news. Just stay tuned.